Martha DeGrasse here for AGL, and I'm joined today by Jonathan Adelstein. He is President and CEO of the Wireless Infrastructure Association. Jonathan, thanks so much for making the time today.
Martha, thanks for having me.
We're starting all these interviews the same way. We're trying to look ahead to 2021, and in order to do that, we need to first look back at 2020. So can you start by sharing with us some of the lessons that you've learned from 2020?
Well, obviously, Martha, it was a strange year for everybody, but we started off with a very difficult situation with permitting where municipalities, like everybody else, were taking things home. And those that didn't have online processes or weren't ready to work remotely really slowed down. We worked very closely through our member companies and WIA with municipalities and with their national organizations to address those communities that were kind of experiencing more major obstacles and trying to help them work through it in a cooperative way. And we understood, of course, the situation they were in. But I think we were able to break through a lot of those early roadblocks and get things back on track. Now, they're not as smooth as they were in terms of permitting, but I think largely municipalities have adapted to the situation and have done as best they can. Now, of course, they have budget cuts and they're under a lot of stress themselves, as we are. But we found, by and large, we're able to get these networks built. We're able to maintain them. Municipalities are recognizing how important these are, particularly in the pandemic. So we made a lot of progress. And generally speaking, for our industry, it's been a year that there's been wide recognition of how critical we are to everything people are doing. I mean, think back 10 years ago, and we had 4 megabits per second, on average. We couldn't have been doing these kind of Zoom calls. Working from home would have been a disaster. The economy would have ground to a halt. So never have we been better recognized for the role that we play for emergencies, for healthcare, for education, the kids working, doing their schoolwork at home, and business, the entire economy. So it's really spotlighted us.
Absolutely, it has. Now, regarding the municipalities, you've had a really friendly FCC for the past 4 years. Do you think that based on what we've seen with the pandemic and the need for infrastructure, we might see that going forward, or what do you think will happen?
Well, I expect, things might change a little bit with a Democratic takeover of the FCC and the administration. It's not going to be the same level of focus on deregulation. But the good news is I think we really got most of our agenda accomplished during the Trump administration. They were extremely open to us. We got Section 6409 fixed. There were some loopholes municipalities were using to get around compliance. We got compound expansion through, so every tower in the country now has 30 feet almost automatically that they can expand to include public safety equipment or a new co-location without having to go through local approval. So we really got a lot done. The small cell orders were done. 30 states have passed laws that were very responsible and tailored. So I think we made a lot of progress. And now we just have to ride that out. I mean, I don't think we're going to get a lot more regulatory relief, to be honest, but we've got what we needed. We've got a pretty good framework. I mean, we're going to have to grind it out on the ground, but I wouldn't anticipate a lot of additional deregulation. I think that the Democratic-led FCC is going to be more sympathetic to municipalities, and so we'll have to make do with what we can.
Okay, in terms of grinding it out on the ground, what are some of the best practices that your members are reporting as far as working collaboratively with those municipalities?
Well, there's a lot of great work being done. I mean, municipalities are, I think, really coming around. Not everyone. It's very uneven. Some are much more willing to roll out the red carpet, but they're starting to recognize that if they roll out the red carpet, they get more investment. And if they throw up obstacles, it's going to make it harder to build out their area. So we have to, try to work with those that are putting out more resistance so that it's more even. I mean, from an industry perspective, we have limited CapEx. We want to take the CapEx that we have and use it efficiently. You want it to go where the biggest problems are. And if regulatory hurdles make that sort of irrational, you end up having investment more in some areas than others that you wouldn't otherwise do if it wasn't for regulatory. That's not ideal from a consumer perspective or from an industry perspective. And certainly from the municipalities that are causing, roadblocks, they're going to pay the price.
Are municipalities sensitive to the need to try to bridge the digital divide?
I think they are. I think that municipalities, are really getting it. Again, they're seeing what we're all seeing. They're working from home. Their kids are working from home. They've never been more concerned about those that are getting left behind. And it goes from most municipal level to the state and federal level. I mean, we're seeing a potentially huge investment in broadband infrastructure in the next Congress if we can get an agreement. Of course, it all depends on whether the Republicans in the Senate and the Democrats in the House, Biden administration can get together. And it's unclear now if they can, but it's clear that the House Democrats and the Biden administration are committed to doing a major package. And hopefully that will gain traction in the Senate as well. There's a lot of senators that feel the same way. A lot of them come from rural areas that want to see major investments. So the prospects for a massive bill are very, very good, but certainly it's not a done deal by any stretch.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about workforce development. I know the Department of Labor has designated WIA to oversee a lot of that. Can you give us an update there?
Yeah, we've really seen, again, in this administration, a willingness to support 5G workforce development. President Trump himself at Davos last year, right before the pandemic broke out, mentioned the need for skills training for 5G. And we were able to translate that into some support from the Department of Labor in the form of grants and contracts to the Telecommunications Industry Registered Apprenticeship Program that we run that can help us to help our employers quickly scale up their workforce, quickly train people with the latest skills they need, find federal support and incentive funding, as well as funding on the state level to get their training costs basically offloaded to some extent. So if we can we work at a multi-employer model, we get a lot of small, mid-sized, and sometimes larger employers together to share training materials and training programs, use the apprenticeship model, which has been so successful in other industries like electrical and utility work. We want to bring that into our industry so we get the same benefits that they've gotten for so many years, the same federal support, the same roadmap, if you will. And apprenticeships improve retention. It's proven to improve retention, which has been a huge issue for our members. It's proven to improve recruitment because new workers want to go to a business that offers an apprenticeship where they see a clear pathway to progress, where they're going to get trained up. And so it's something that, given those are two big problems that we've been experiencing, I think it's something that a lot of employers are turning to. And that's why we've seen 30 employers join TIRAP. And so far they're seeing good progress.
Sounds good. What mechanisms are in place for getting the word about the apprenticeships out into communities, community colleges, et cetera?
Well, the part of the grant is that we have additional outreach, and we have 5 community colleges that we're setting up programs in states all over the country, from Kentucky to Wisconsin, Ohio, Missouri. We're going to be pioneering programs in those schools, and if employers want to set one up in their state that can be a feeder to them, we can help them do that based on the models we're developing through the DOL grant. So we can get people into our industry through community colleges and technical schools. We're also doing outreach directly to underrepresented communities, to veterans, working with Warriors for Wireless and other veterans groups to try to see if we can't develop a pipeline of talent that's diverse, bringing in more women, more minorities, more veterans into our industry. And that will be, I think, well rewarded in the Biden administration is seeking to expand diversity and inclusion. We're hoping to find ways to fund the training of these individuals for our employers. So again, you can kind of offload the costs onto the federal government to some extent and get a pipeline of new talent.
I'm sure companies will love that. That sounds good. All right. Well, I know that we're all eager for the day when we can get back together in person to talk about these issues. Can you give us an update on the next ConnectX show?
Well, thanks for asking. Yeah, we moved it. We were in Boston in May, but we moved it back to August to make sure that we had a better running room to get everybody safe. And it looks like now the vaccine coming available could be perfectly in time. You got to get your shots and come to Boston in August. We just want to be in Boston in August. And I know we all miss each other. Can't wait to see the industry get together again. We expect a lot of enthusiasm. We're seeing early enthusiasm for it. People are pretty confident that we should be in good shape by then. Thank goodness we'll, I think, have a sort of family reunion extraordinaire in Boston in August. We'll get out of wherever we are and get up to the cool climate up there and see each other again. And it's been way too long.
It definitely has. All right. Well, thank you for being here virtually today, Jonathan Adelstein, President and CEO of the Wireless Infrastructure Association.
Thanks for having me, Martha.